A voicemail from a real Banner Health patient.
Kudos to all the staff that treated me that day. They were as quick as possible, as thorough as possible, and they gave me peace of mind.
We're here to help you breathe easier. Banner Health. Exhale.
I'll say this for him, he's consistent.
Well, he's been so consistent all year.
Not the taste, consistency.
Consistently, yes.
Consistency!
Thanks, losers.
Happy Halloween and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Show. I'm your host, Bob Lung. Just hanging out here. It is windy as all get out. It's a perfect Halloween night here in Canton, Ohio. But amazingly enough, we don't do Halloween with the kids on Halloween night. They always do it the Sunday afternoon before because that's much safer, obviously. So we wanted to do that. But welcome back to another show. We're just got done with Week 8, heading into Week 9. As always, don't forget, we are part of the FullTime Fantasy Podcast Network. Make sure you check out all the great shows that are on the podcast, the IDP Hour, the IDP 411 podcast. I think they're both on. And the reason I bring that up is because we got a special guest this week. All the way from California, Jarod Gray. Jarod has been playing fantasy football since 1998, written on NFL and football draft players the last 20 years. He is very honored to have this scenario, an active duty Navy chief. So, Jarod, we thank you for your service, and his love for the game goes from rookie to veteran coverage on both sides of the ball. As I mentioned, he's a co-host of the IDP Hour and the IDP 411 podcast. Twitter handle is just simply Jarod Gray. Jarod, welcome aboard, and thanks for coming on here kind of last minute, but glad we could get you on here, man.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Yeah, our Halloween's a little different here. It's like sunny and 75.
Yeah.
So
well, it happens in California.
Yeah, it's not too bad out here.
Yeah. Well, and
I appreciate you being here.
So it's like I said, great having you on. And I assume the IDP Hour and the IDP 411 are both on the Full-Time Fantasy Network, yes?
Just the IDP Hour, IDP 411 we do with ExpandTheBoxScore.com.
Right, that's right. I forgot you're part of that group as well. Fantastic group there. If you guys haven't had a chance to get subscribed to that site, you are missing out, folks. I'm a big supporter of this. I've been good friends with Andy Singleton for a long time. Him and you guys have all put together an amazing tool there at the ExpandTheBoxScore.com. Make sure you go and check that out. I think it's, $15, $10, $20, whatever it is. It's
pretty cheap for all they have, that's for sure.
Peanuts compared to the data you have access to. Man, the only thing they don't have is consistency, which I'm glad because that means they can still keep coming to me. It's amazing stuff. So make sure you go check that out. Speaking of amazing websites, I also just want to throw out our weekly commercial for FantasyGo.com. If you haven't had a chance to check this out, FantasyGo.com is basically an Uber for your fantasy team. So if you've got a Yahoo League team that you're struggling with, let's say maybe you're 4-4, you're 2-6, 3-5, you're just kind of not getting it going here. You need some help. You can hire one of us. That includes myself, which somebody right now has hired me for the last 3 weeks, and we went 3-0. No, we went 2-1. He lost this past week, but we got him. He's getting back up to 500 though, and he's making a push for the playoffs. And every week I help him with his waiver wire moves. I'm literally right in Yahoo with him. I can see his team. I can see his lineup, his who he's playing, the waiver wires that are available, and he only pays $7 a week for that. So that's a heck of a cheap service there that can help you out with, and we're having a great time doing it. And there's a chat room there, but you can also do it if you're in other leagues. You can just do screenshots of your ESPN league or NFL.com league, or if you're doing DFS, there's guys that can help you. Colby Conway's on the site. He's one of our consistently cashing guys here for the DFS world, so you can check that out as well. So don't forget to go FantasyGo.com, check it out. If you need some help, definitely hire me, and we'll get you back into the swing of things and get you on the consistent side of fantasy football. So, Jarod, have you seen this FantasyGo.com yet?
Yeah, I actually I've been checking it out last couple of weeks. It is pretty cool.
Okay.
I haven't really got into it. Obviously, I've been playing for a long time, and
Right.
You know, we tend to help a lot of guys IDP side. You know, for
you should get on there as an analyst because you can get paid to do that and help with the IDP stuff. So make sure.
Well, I mean, I'm all about some money. So
there you go. Yeah. So I think it's I don't know if it's info@fantasygo.com, but you know,
I'll give him a hit.
Yeah, definitely hit him up. And his name's David Ibrahim, and he'll be more than happy to help you out. Tell him Bob Lung sent you. So he was in for the Fantasy Football Expo we had, of course, this past August. And he came in from San Diego, California. So, see, it's not too far away.
I knew his name. So,
yeah.
I mean, we're a small group out here, which is kind of weird because we're such a big state. It seems like all you big hitters over on the East Coast. What's up with that?
Yeah, well, I just lived in Canton, Ohio all my life. It's hard for me to leave.
I hear you.
Being that close to Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, man, that's so awesome. Huh?
Yeah, so anyway, so Jarod's going to be helping us out tonight. We're going to go over, kind of do a mid-season review of consistency. That's what we talk about here. You know, Jarod, I sent you the reports. You've had some time to look at the numbers of who's been consistent at each position. And, you know, let's start at the quarterback position. It's been kind of a messy scenario because some of the guys that have been scoring points and are up there in the top 5, top 10 in total points aren't necessarily as consistent as we expected them to be. And two I'm looking at right off the bat is Russell Wilson, 2nd overall in total points, Aaron Rodgers, 4th overall in total points, but yet they are both at 50% consistent for the year. That doesn't cut it for me. And I know people are all in about the fact that Russell Wilson's been just great, but, you know, he has had some games where he's been under the clutch factor of about 20 fantasy points a week. He's been around 17, 18. So he's close. So that's why to most people they don't feel like he's killing them, and he's not because of the total points. But that's still not getting him into the top 12 only half the games. And so that's been troublesome for people that may or may not realize that. Now, Aaron Rodgers, we know, has been boom or bust. In fact, he started off pretty much as a bust for the first 4 or 5 games. I think at one point he was 1 for 5. Now he's put up, you know, 3 for 3 in the last 3 games, seems to be picking it up. And by the end of the year, he'll probably be up to the 75%. But what are your thoughts on Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers? Do you see them picking that consistency back up, or are we going to see a lot of this up and down from both of these guys?
Well, for me, I would say Russell Wilson has been a little bit of a surprise, even though he's so good that the offensive line is so bad. So I kind of expected consistency to be up and down with him. I mean, he's playing pretty well. I mean, you know, obviously we'll get to Carson, but I kind of expect a little up and down. I think you're going to little more consistency out of Rodgers coming up just because he finally gets Devontae Adams back. Their line is playing well. Aaron Jones is one of the biggest surprises in football.
Right.
So I kind of expect Aaron Rodgers to kind of actually steady out and be where he's going to be. So
right.
I don't see a whole lot of fluctuation out of him.
Okay.
But
yeah, it'll be interesting because the thing with him at the beginning of the year was they were 5-1. I mean, they were winning football games with him not having to throw the ball a lot because the defense was good and the running game was good. They've kind of picked it up since Devontae went down because of the fact that, you know, they didn't have a Devontae Adams to rely on. So we'll have to wait and see if they continue. You know, they're going to keep playing. I think a lot
of that was scheduled for him, though.
Right.
I mean, if you really look at it.
Absolutely.
So
and that was part of it.
Now he's going to have to gun it.
Right. I mean, obviously, when they're playing the teams that have a good offense.
To win that division, I think he's going to have to be more consistent. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's look at the top of the group. You know, Patrick Mahomes and Matt Ryan are 6 for 7. The only reason they're 6 for 7, they were perfect until they both got hurt, you know, a couple weeks ago. So that put them out in the middle of both those games, which then obviously they didn't earn their clutch game then. But, you know, some of the surprises up there, Lamar Jackson, 6 for 7, 3rd in total points. Dak Prescott is probably a big surprise for me because he has not been consistent since his rookie season. He's 5th in total points, also 86%. Now, a lot of people are surprised by their Josh Allen at 86%, even though he's 19th in total points. I mean, he's definitely just barely earning 20 to 22 points a week, which is getting him over that clutch factor. But, I explained to people that have brought this up, he went 5 for 6 at the end of last year in consistency. And so he proved that, he could put up the numbers. He's got the legs to get some fantasy points that way. But, they got a good defense, so he's certainly been a good game manager. Again, he's not scoring more than 25 points a week, but he's definitely there for your 20 to 25, which, versus some of these other quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, those kind of guys certainly been consistent enough for me that, I've used him in a couple of leagues, especially on bye weeks, and he's been a nice little find there. But what are your thoughts on the guys at the top of the list? Any really major surprises to you, and do you see them continuing on, especially Lamar, Dak, and Josh?
Well, as it goes with Lamar, if you looked at it the last couple of games, he's been very high in fantasy points because he's ran the ball very well. Mm-hmm. He threw 2 straight interceptions against Cleveland, mm-hmm. And then you got Dak, who might have the easiest schedule overall for a quarterback, which is why I grabbed him in a lot of leagues. Pat Mahomes obviously being injured, Matt Ryan being injured. Both have very tough schedules ahead of, but Pat Mahomes in general has been, if he's on and he's playing and he's healthy, right, he's pretty much whoever he plays against. He's unstoppable.
He's Superman out there. I don't care who he's playing. He can play San Francisco and New England back to back. If he's healthy and everybody's healthy on that offense, he's putting up 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't care who's playing defense.
I agree, especially with Tyreek Hill being healthy again.
Right.
I think Pat Mahomes is going to be out another week, so we're going to see more out of that. Josh Allen, though, if you look at his schedule for the last 6 weeks, you got to go get this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We talked about
we're
this.
We're going consistency at 20 points to consistency at 25 to 30 maybe.
Yeah, right.
So he's a guy that, his schedule looks delicious. He's very consistent running the ball. Mm-hmm. He's getting you 20 points for passing. Why not go get him?
Absolutely.
He's a guy I'm looking to trade for, and people are like, okay, well, maybe.
Yeah, I've told people the same thing. It was like, if you're looking at a trade, and let's say you have a decent starting quarterback, maybe you've got a Stafford or Breeze or Wentz. It may not be a bad idea to go make a trade for another position, especially, and if somebody's got Josh Allen, say, hey, I tell you what, I'll trade you this guy for that guy, and just throw in Josh Allen just so I can have a backup quarterback. Just kind of a throw in, like, oh yeah, sure, that's fine. I don't need him because a lot of people don't. They look at the 19th in total points, and that's what they see, and that's why we do the consistency stuff, is to show people that maybe they're not as bad as you think. And even just looking at 75%, you've got Andy Dalton at 75%. This guy just got benched, and this guy's been pretty productive fantasy-wise.
Top 5 passers in all football, but that's because they're trailing the whole time.
Exactly.
So
right.
I more blame his line. I don't know why they benched him, to be honest with you.
Well, I think that they're just they haven't won a game. They've probably figured, well, we've given half a season Andy. Ryan Finley's the future. We'll just bring him in and see how he does. If he goes out there and sucks for 2 weeks and they get beat even worse, then maybe Andy Dalton comes back and plays the rest of the year. But I think they have to give Ryan Finley a shot at this point, and what do they got to lose? If I'm Andy Dalton, I'm getting paid anyway. So
I'll give you my bold move. I think Jameis Winston jumps up at least 10 to 15%.
Yeah, no, I definitely believe.
I love his schedule.
Yeah, he's got a nice schedule. I thought he'd be a little bit more consistent, but he's just had some games where he just, the 4 interceptions into one game, and just hasn't, really been doing a good job of that, of protecting the ball. But all right, so let's move on to the running back position. Let's start at the top in this one. We've got some perfectly consistent players. Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, that's no surprise to anybody. Leonard Fournette and James White, that's a surprise. I said the other night on a podcast I was on, I said, the biggest surprise about Leonard Fournette to me this year, it's not his 100% consistency. It's the fact that he hasn't done anything stupid yet, because it's almost halfway through and you haven't heard a peep out of this guy. It's almost
Yeah.
scary. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
expecting for like a meltdown at some point. But, so far so good. If you took a chance on him, I just got burned too many years in a row. I just couldn't do it. And, I'm kind of kicking myself now, but, I'm
with you. I was right in your boat. I kind of expected last year to happen. And when I found out he lost 20 pounds and he wanted to get back to where he was catching the ball better, I was like, man, I don't want to sell myself on this guy, but I feel like he's going to have a good year.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows me, I'm not a big Leonard Fournette guy. And,
no, I wasn't either. And
wow,
like I
is he
said, it wasn't
proving
that
me
I
wrong.
had a problem with the talent. I had a problem with the head. Like I
Exactly,
said,
100%.
he could have easily went and been, another Antonio Brown, because that's what he basically was like the last couple of years. Was just great football player, super talented, dumb as a brick when it comes to making life decisions, both on and off the field, punching people, half-assing it in the games, not caring on the bench.
Feel the same about Zeke. I mean,
yeah, right.
Zeke is the exact same way. I mean, one of the best running backs talent-wise that we've seen the last couple of years.
Right.
And I just don't know if he's going to make it through the season or even start a season.
Yeah.
So,
right. And then James White, we've seen this in the past where they've relied on him for a stretch of games. I mean, just a couple years ago, I remember him going 8 for 8 and then only had like 2 clutch games the rest of the year. Could that happen? Maybe. Sony Michel is running okay. He's not like he's certainly not looking like he did in the Super Bowl. But I think James White is still definitely Tom Brady's best friend, and as long as the receiving core is kind of marginal there, they picked up Sanu, but I think James White will continue.
They waived Gordon today.
Yeah, and they waived Gordon. Yeah, we saw that coming. That's for sure. Down in the 80% range, McCaffrey, Chubb, Kamara, Barkley, no surprises there. In the 75% spot, Aaron Jones.
He's a mover, though. He's moving fast. Aaron Jones is moving fast up that board.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's had a couple big weeks. It certainly has moved him up quickly. Austin Eckler, the good thing with Eckler is since Melvin Gordon's came on board, Eckler hasn't really – he's dropped a little bit in total points, but he's still being as consistent as he was. Derrick Henry being consistent. And, let's stay with the Buffalo theme of if you're looking to trade for some players, go out and get Devin Singletary before it's too late, because he's been 75% consistent in the 4 games he played, and that's with Frank Gore on the field as well. And if he can do that like that the rest of the year, and most people probably forgot about him, maybe they realize he's back healthy-wise, but he's probably sitting on somebody's bench somewhere. Go out there and make a trade and get him as a throw-in or as a bonus, because I think he's going to continue, like you said, the easy schedule. Gore is 105 years old. He's an alien, but he's 105. But he'll still get his numbers, but he's going to wear down. It's going to get cold, crappy in Buffalo. They're going to need to kind of have Singletary and Gore kind of do that together. So
completely agree with you.
Definitely there. Connor and Johnson are both hurt. That's been a buzzkill. Let's go down the guy you talked about. Your thoughts on Chris Carson. I was a huge Chris Carson fan.
Well, I mean, I'm from Oklahoma originally, and so I'm a Sooners fan. Didn't like Chris Carson on the other team.
Right.
And then going to Seattle, he probably had the quietest 1,000-yard season we ever heard of last year.
Yeah, definitely.
And then now he's one of the top running backs this year. If you look at, especially breaking tackles, and he's good for 18 points a game. And if he has one of those breakout goal line games, don't touch him. So,
yeah. No, and I'm really, that's the thing. He's missed a couple of those clutch games by just a 1 or 2 points. That's why he's 8th in total points and only 63% consistent. But I bet you there's at least 2 games where if he could be 7 of 8 easily, where I think he was, I think the cutoff's like about 11 points, and he was at 10.2, 10.3. So, one more catch out of the backfield, and he could easily be 7 of 8 or 6 of 8 and be right up there with the top guy. So I'm not too worried about him. I guess the guys I am worried about are guys like Devontae Freeman, the Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman combo. Lindsay's 11th in total points, but only 50% consistent. Those are the guys that I'm a little worried about. Is there anybody on this list, good or bad, that kind of intrigued you? And what are your thoughts?
I already talked about Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs being a rookie. He's still being 4 of 7 in the consistency aspect. They've got a pretty good, schedule moving forward. I can see him getting, if he stays healthy. I know I'm worried about the shoulder as much as anybody, but besides that, I don't know. I'm a little shocked about Phillip Lindsay not getting a lot of carries. I think David Montgomery finally got a look last week, and he finally showed that, hey, you guys run the ball, we can win this football game.
Right.
And
you run the ball with
Chicago
him.
realizes exactly, and it has to be with him. I mean, he's the premier back. You went and got him for a reason.
Right.
So
right.
I think David Montgomery can finally shoot above the 50 to 60% mark, and that's a person that I'm looking at of all the guys.
Yeah, and that's another one. If if somebody has been fed up, I mean, you probably should have got him a week ago before you did have the good game this past week. But you never know. There might be some people out there that you might be able to make a trade for and grab him or Singletary to add to your team for your kind of stretch run. Because again, when Chicago and Buffalo get into November and December, you need those backs, and that's where those guys are going to certainly come into play, because it gets cold, windy, crappy, snowy, all that kind of fun stuff. So, beyond that, everybody else is kind of down there below 50%. Latavius Murray is a god if he gets the start, and there's no Kamara, but Kamara, I think is expected to be back after this week's bye. If he's not, obviously Murray stays very relevant.
I think he's kind of proved the point where he's going to get those Mark Ingram carries from now on, though.
It'll be interesting because he wasn't before. But
I think the team finally realized, all right, we actually kind of have a gem here. We have a team that is built to run.
Right.
I mean, you win 6 games with a guy. You kind of got to keep – you take Teddy Bridgewater out only because you got the most accurate passer in football history. That's the only reason.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the last one I wanted to kind of bring up, I think I talked about a little bit. Melvin Gordon, since he's come back, only 1 for 4, 25% consistency. I've said this before, and I'll say it continuously. The Chargers team took a dive in the wrong direction when Gordon came back. That team was clicking offensively. They were winning football games. Keenan Allen was benefiting. Eckler was benefiting. And Gordon comes in and just kind of messed everything up because they have to give him the ball because he's the star. I really wish they would have traded him before the deadline, but obviously they probably wanted too much for him. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that scenario? I mean, Eckler still seems to be getting the points because the defense hasn't been doing a very good job, and so they're still throwing the ball quite a bit, and Eckler is obviously a beneficiary of that. But what are your thoughts on Gordon the rest of the year?
I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised they didn't trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw what you had with Eckler. Jackson's a good backup in the background. Melvin Gordon's going to cost you money. He's obviously not who he was.
Right.
I mean, that they fired their coach out of it. Ken Wisner got fired out of it because of such bad play, really, out of Gordon, who's your stud. So I'll be honest with you, I'm staying away from him. I mean, I'm selling high. I mean, I don't like the schedule.
My thought is they trade him in the offseason because he wants a new contract, and I don't think they're going to give it to him. So my thought is they'll shop him in the offseason. There'll be somebody, that's, like maybe not the Arizona Cardinals, because Chase Edmonds could be the future if David Johnson doesn't kick it in.
They just went and got Kenyon Drake. So
yeah, right. But there's certainly
I could see
there.
Kansas City going after him.
Yeah, I could see that.
Him or Houston.
Or Houston. I mean, Carlos Hyde hasn't done badly in Houston, but
he's old. I mean,
but he's getting up there. Melvin Gordon could certainly be benefit quite a bit from Kansas City. So, so we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I have a feeling they'll ship him off in the offseason, and that'll maybe he'll get it together. But we'll have to see there. All right, let's move on to the wide receivers. I'll let you start here. Just throw out some guys that maybe as you looked at this group that you kind of went, that's surprising one way or the other. What did you see on that list that kind of caught your eye?
Well, I've been a big guy of Terrell Williams since the beginning of the season, especially when Antonio Brown got thrown out. Loved his play, and obviously, I mean, he's 5 for 5, 100% when playing. So he's a big one. I think we all expected Tyler Lockett after what him and Russell Wilson did last year. He's, one of the top QBR throwing wide receivers in all the league last year. So I kind of expect that this year. The biggest surprise, I would say, for anybody, you kind of have to go with DJ Chark, who, when he plays, and he's 6 or 8, 75%, consistency. I mean, I'll take that all day.
Right. But even more amazing is the fact that he's 5th in total points. It's not just consistent. I mean, John Brown is consistent, but he's 20th in total points. But Chark is, 5th in total points. I mean, neither one of them did you expect to be this consistent, I'm sure. But that's the difference between a Chark and Brown, is that while they're both pretty consistent numbers-wise, Chark has put up some very good numbers in his top 5 in total points. Now, granted, there's certainly players who've only, had a bye week or they've had some injuries, so that has some effect on this.
Well, the quarterback injuries has hurt everybody but Michael Thomas.
Right, exactly.
I mean, he's the only person that really has stayed, hey, he's going to be the guy, and that doesn't matter. I mean, he's number one in fantasy, number one in consistency. I mean, 183 points. I mean, he doesn't drop a ball. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Doesn't matter what spiral they're throwing. I think guys like Tyreek Hill are going to climb up this list. Obviously now that he's healthy, and I mean, he's obviously targeted a lot last week. I mean, that's something I look at. Adam Thielen was probably the biggest one that kind of surprised me. As good as he is and consistency as he was last year, to be at 71%, 5 for 7 of the games he's playing. He's been a little nagging with injuries.
Right. I think that's been the key, is that, the games he has gotten, not got the clutch game, not been over 11 points, I think has been games he got injured in, so he came out and couldn't finish the game. But no, I agree with you there on that one for sure.
We'll see where it ends up going. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm surprised Allen Robinson's so high because their quarterback's so bad.
Right.
So,
well, I think somebody brought up a good point. We've had this conversation before, is that Robinson gets like double-digit targets every game. He's the only guy Trubisky even throws at. So it's really just a mere, a volume aspect of it. It's not that he's good, or definitely not that Trubisky's any good, because he's not. But yeah, he's definitely been a beneficiary of the volume. I think probably the biggest surprise to me this year for wide receivers has been these boom or bust guys. And I'm talking about guys like Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, of course, Will Fuller. Will Fuller literally is 1 for 8, or 1 for 7, because he missed the 2 games, or 1 for 6.
Yeah, he had the one good game.
One amazing game. And I think after that week, he was, 12th in total points and 1 for 7, or 1 for 6. So he was, it's like, this is the whole epitome of why I do this stuff, is to show these guys. But, Mike Evans is 6th in total points, but only 57% consistent, which is barely half the games he's helping your team. And let's remember, 2 of those games are both over 40 points. He's had 2 games over 40 points. He's had 1 game where he had a 0. You can't get more big bang or bust from that.
Oh, I agree. It's funny, though. I looked at their schedule, and he has a very favorable schedule moving forward. Mm-hmm. I traded Tyler Boyd for him because I know it's still Mike Evans.
Right.
And Tyler Boyd, at the beginning, first 4 games of the season, was most consistent wide receiver in the NFL. Right. He was right at 100%, and now he's totally dropped off. At least Evans has come back and had those boom or bust games on games that you might have needed him in. He's a little worrisome. I'll give you a guy that is coming up the charts, and he's only at 50% now, but his last 3 games have been really good, is Danny Amendola. He's got last 2 games, he's had 20 targets, 16 catches. I can't grab about that all day. He's basically turned into
right. And
Julian
Stafford's
Edelman.
had to throw because they lost Kerryon Johnson, and their defense has given up way too many points. So yeah, if you're a Matthew Stafford owner, or again going back to trading for the second half of the season, if you're struggling at quarterback, let's say maybe you got Baker, Mayfield, or somebody like that, if you can get out there and trade for Stafford before it's too late, I mean, he's got a great schedule. They're going to be throwing the ball a ton because they don't have any running backs that can run the ball, and the defense is, marginal at best. So, Amendola, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, all those guys will start benefiting even more. That's a great call on Amendola as well. There's some disappointments, and both of them are LA Rams. Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. Robert Woods last year was 88% consistent. I really didn't see a reason for him to have a drop-off. And total points-wise, he really hasn't that much. He's 22nd in total points. But, man, just 3 for 8, 38% consistent, same as Brandon Cooks, who actually is only 38th in total points. Now, granted, I get it. Cooper Kupp is the god there, and he gets a lot of targets. But, these guys were all very effective last year. They gave a first-round draft
pick for Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, right. And now Cooks could be out for a while with concussion issues. So my thought is Robert Woods will pick it back up. But here's the weird thing. Cooks went out last week. Robert Woods ended the week like under 10 points, and Josh Reynolds had like 15. So
it's funny how Josh Reynolds stepped up last year about the same time, had some pretty good couple weeks. You just don't know which Goff you're going to get.
Right.
You know which Cooper Kupp you're going to get, so he's the one guy that he's
the Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's impossible to trade for because the person that has him is relying on him.
Oh, yeah. Nobody's going to trade Kupp.
Yeah, so maybe I can get him for Chris McCaffrey.
Or maybe Michael Thomas straight up, but that's about it. That's
only way. And thing is it's pretty awesome to see that out of him.
Yeah, right.
We'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah. All right, so let's we got about 10 minutes, 13 minutes left. So, all right, so let's stay with the wide receivers just for a few more minutes because let's talk about a couple guys that were drafted as first rounders but are not putting up first round numbers. So Odell Beckham Jr., Keenan Allen I mentioned,
Juju.
Yeah, Juju is another one that's in that group.
Juju's starting
T.Y.
to climb
Hilton,
a little bit, though.
Stephon
He finally
Diggs.
got targeted last week.
Yeah, so you're right. I think with Mason Rudolph back, that helps quite a bit. So I think we'll see consistency. And to be honest with you, to be at 71% in the mess that they playing there, this isn't too bad for where granted you expected higher, but then you also expected Big Ben to play all year too. So, but him, T.Y. Hilton, Stephon Diggs, those are the kind of guys that I think some people are disappointed in because they're only at about 71% consistent. Beckham and Landry obviously are a product of Baker Mayfield. Hopefully they'll start picking it up there.
They have the schedule for the next, 6-7 weeks that
right.
You could see a big change there. So
right, and I think there's some frustration there. They're gonna, this is a good week for them to go off in Denver. My thought is the defense will be, taking it to Brandon Allen as the third string quarterback there. So I have a feeling they're going to put him in some good, situations based on line of scrimmage, spots, on the field. I'm hoping to see then some touchdowns out of Mayfield. I mean, Chubb is Chubb. He'll just continue to do what he does well, run. But, we need to see Mayfield. But we also need to see some good play calling. We need to see some good blocking on the offensive line. That's been a lot of problems, too.
Problem.
And they need to stop stupid mistakes, too. But, we'll have to wait and see on that one as well.
We'll see.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm sitting there watching a game going, look, I know I'm biased. I know I have to root for my Browns. But, God, some of these calls these refs are making, I'm like, are you seriously all out against the Browns this year? I mean, you just don't want them to win. Come on. Some of these
like
calls and non-calls. Yep. Jeez.
I'm with you. 100% with you.
Are you a Browns fan? Because I saw that your Twitter.
I am. I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I was from Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. That's right. I forgot about that. I got you.
But honestly, I've always been a Patriots fan growing up. My mom's from upstate New York.
Gotcha.
So I've always been a Patriots fan. Always been a big Ty Law was one of my favorite players coming out of college. Huge college football fan.
Super nice guy. I met him this year when I was driving for Hall of Fame weekend.
Oh, wow. I kind of hate you a little bit right now.
Sorry,
So.
I'm sorry. I actually wanted Ty Law. I wanted to drive Ty Law. And so we have a kind of a fantasy draft for the drivers. So I'm the third pick because I'm the third highest seniority in the group. And I literally thought for sure I was going to get Ty Law because my buddy was going to take Tony Gonzalez. He was the second pick, and the guy who taken first was taking Kevin Maui. And I'm like, okay, good, I'm going to get Ty Law. And then they brought up the fact that this guy who kind of rejoined the committee had more years experience than me. And they're like, no, he gets to go before you. I'm like, okay, fine. Who you want? He goes, Ty Law. I'm like, no, you can't have him. That's mine. He goes, no, that's what I want. I drove him when he came in March. And I'm like, shit. So I got Champ Bailey. Not that that was a problem. Champ Bailey was super cool.
The greats, so.
But yeah, I went to Ty Law's party. That was super fun. A lot of fun stuff at that. That was a good time. So, but yeah, Ty's a great guy. So good call on that. All right, let's move to the tight end position. We got a little under 10 minutes to go. No surprise, top of the list, Travis Kelce, second in total points, 100%. After that, the tight end position is not what we expected.
Well, it's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
I'm a
huge Mark Andrews fan.
Okay.
He went to Oklahoma. He's basically Gronk, to be honest with you.
Right.
And his quarterback has finally targeted him. Now, he's had a few games where they've kind of tried to mix in some other players. So he's at 71%, 5 of 7.
Yeah. Minor injuries has kept him out.
Evan Ingram's super talented. He's at 86%. Right. Again, he's got a rookie quarterback. I'll take 86% out of a tight end all day long.
And as long as Daniel Jones is throwing to him, that's all I was concerned about when they're like, okay, we're going to put Jones in. I'm like, okay. I mean, Daniel Jones is smart enough to realize what he's got in Evan Ingram, and he's been feeding him the ball the whole time, so not too concerned there. I think what everybody expected to see was Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, and George Kittle just killing it like they were last year, because that's where everybody drafted them. Kelce was second round.
But here's why I look at that, why it didn't happen. Zach Ertz, most of his games were with who? Nick Foles.
Right.
George Kittle was with two other quarterbacks
right.
who are young. When they're in college, who do you focus on? The tight end.
Right.
So I was well away from George Kittle. There's no way I was touching him with Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm just being honest with you.
But Ertz still had a good year the year before that with Carson Wentz. I mean, I didn't think that would be a drop-off. The Kittle thing I kind of thought about as well, and while I was not as high as I was the year before. But I think the thing with Ertz is not the fact is Ertz, it's the fact that right behind him is Dallas Goedert with 52 fantasy points and is 57% consistent, and it's hard to feed two tight ends and keep them both consistent and active. And, if you add those two guys together, you have 135 points. You'd still be in second place behind Austin Hooper. But, that's always a buzzkill when you've got that second tight end that's eating into your production, and there's no question that's happening. But like I said, I think everybody expected those three guys to be killing it. Hunter Henry was one of those guys we all believe he can be good, and he has in the games he's played. But once again, injuries and issues. But he's 100%
We kind of
consistent.
expected of that out of him because who his quarterback is. He loves to target the tight end.
Yeah. Right.
Darren Waller. I knew Darren Waller was going to have a good year this year because who his quarterback is.
Yeah.
And everybody was expecting, Jared Cook to go off. Let's be real, Drew Brees doesn't target the tight end very much.
Hasn't since Jimmy Graham left, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
and then the Austin Hooper one, I think that's probably the biggest surprise to me, especially because I've always been down on him because he's always been inconsistent. He's always had those big games. He's always been top 10 in total points, but I've never seen the consistency. And then, we kind of put two and two together and said, well, look who his new OC is. It's Dirk Cutter. And where was Dirk Cutter last year? He was in Tampa Bay with O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard sucks this year. Austin Hooper's killing it. Duh. Yep. So we all should have known better for that one. But the thing is that, Will Dissly's in there at 67%. But, after Ertz and Dallas Goedert, every other tight end is 50% or below. I mean, you'll see a lot of, inconsistency in tight ends. but the separation this year has probably been the worst I've seen, especially when you see guys that like Gerald Everett, who's 10th in total points, Greg Olson's 11th. You see guys that are in the top 12 position-wise in points, and yet they're under 50% consistent. That's the boomer bust guys, at the tight end position. Hunter Henry's 12th, and he's only played half the games. So that at some point he'll get up there and he'll stay
he's
consistent.
Definitely guys. Anybody should be targeting if you can get him.
We got about 5 minutes left, so let's talk about the guys below 50%. Is there anybody in there that you see maybe having a good second half that might get them above 50% overall for the year? What are your thoughts on some of these guys like Olsen, Ebron, Doyle, some of these other guys?
Well, it's the same aspect when you say Goddard and Ertz. You got Doyle and Ebron, so you're too much sharing there, right? And then Ricky Seals-Jones, I really thought he was going to step up, and then here you got their new guys starting to play well.
Right, Harris.
Harris, yep. So I'll be honest with you, the only person that I can really see coming up, maybe Cameron Brate, because O.J. Howard has been so bad.
Right. The only other guy I thought about, too, is, and this is only because of the injury to Delaney Walker, is, Jonnu Smith, has put up a couple good games here, and if Walker is down for a while, he certainly has proven he can fill in admirably there. But that's
Tannehill
really good.
Used to love Clay when Clay was,
right
with him. So I could see that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jared Cook isn't going anywhere. He's not going to, improve just because Breeze is back. Graham has done nothing, basically. He'll have a game. Every fourth game he'll catch a touchdown or so and earn a clutch game, but that's so few and far between. But, another guy that's not even on the list that if he gets healthy and gets back on the field will be, I think, a great second half guy is Chris Herndon for the Jets. They already showed last week Ryan Griffin can be productive, with Sam Darnold back. So hopefully Herndon's back. That I can see being a good second half guy as well. Anybody else on that list that you can think of?
If he gets healthy and plays?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, he wasn't doing all that much before he went down. But
he's a lot like Higgins when it comes to Baker Mayfield. He has his trust. So
yeah,
and that was a big deal to me last year. I mean, he was one of the top tight ends targeted in the end zone last year. So
right, yeah. And the key is they got to get him close to the end zone and not fumble or not, or get close to the end zone and be first and goal, and the next thing you know, it's second and 30.
I hear you.
Which has been their problem, that's for sure. All right. Well, Jarod, thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate you filling in. Why don't you kind of tell everybody what you're doing about your podcast and where everybody can find you?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at Jarod Gray. You can look us at our YouTube, look the IDP 411 on YouTube. Again, our two podcasts are the IDP 411 with Expand the Box Score, and then the IDP Hour of FullTime Fantasy Podcast Network.
And what days are those on?
So you'll get our IDP 411 is on Mondays, and then on Thursdays is the IDP Hour. We also do a live cast every Sunday for your start-sit charts. Myself, Jordan Rains, who is 50 Shades of Drunk on Twitter, and then the Dynasty Chef for Steve is our producer.
Nice.
So, yeah, we have 3 a week that we do. So
nice. And I assume that it's all IDP on Sunday morning as well, right?
All IDP. We get a few offensive questions.
Sure.
We'll always answer them. But, yeah, it's the IDP live cast.
Well, there you go, guys. You can't get any better than that. IDP is a unique thing out there, but it's also very popular and continues to grow. And, there's no question you guys are all over this, part of the game. I mentioned before, I played in one IDP, but it really wasn't an IDP. I mean, it had some IDP players in it, but,
it's the fastest growing fantasy in all of football right now, which is awesome. And, we're trying to set the new standard for that. So if you got questions, please just come and ask us.
Absolutely, and these guys are killing it. 3 podcasts a week, you can't beat that. So make sure you listen on the FullTime Fantasy Podcast Network to Jarod and the guys as well. Of course, at Big Guy Fantasy Sports, we're always keeping stuff consistent here. Of course, our show tonight will be posted a little bit later. Then this weekend, as always, you get your consistently cash-in. So if you're a DFS cash player, listen to the guys. They are on fire. They have won. I know all 4 of their picks, their lineups won last week on both DK and FD. I think that's the second week in a row they went 4 for 4, so definitely check those guys out for that. And then, of course, this year the prop bet consistency tool, which we're using each week to help you with your prop bets. That show, the Prop It Like It's Hot. Make sure you listen to it. If for any reason, make sure you go to last week's show, listen to the new intro that got done by FF Man Bun. Top notch. Fantastic one. So once again, Jarod, thanks again for being here. And
thanks again.
We will definitely be listening to the IDP shows this week. And thanks again. Everybody have a great week. Take care. God bless.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Time to order dinner. I should see what the kids want, too. Ordering Whataburger online. What you want? Double meat with cheese. Cool. With grilled jalapenos. Okay, and lots of add-ons from everyone. Oh my goodness. Good thing you can order online and save favorites for next time. Good thing there's Whataburger.